The numbers for Q4 last year were insane. We got an 8x return on that ad spend. We scaled that program up a lot this year. We did not hit an 8x for Q2, but it's still much more profitable ROAS wise than anything else we're doing.
Marketer. I barely know her.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm great. Somebody is going to be listening to this or watching this and be like, why did he just do that stupid joke? And to know why, you got to go listen to Nate Lagos' content and watch Nate Lagos' content. That's why.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. What's up, man? Sorry, everybody. Sorry, that was a stupid. I'm not sorry, actually. I got that. I stole that from Nate. Go.
Yeah, if you think that was a bad joke, that's my fault. So
Yeah.
I'll take the blame for that. But
Nate, how's it going?
Yeah.
I think you're awesome, and you're Nate Lagos, and we are having this conversation because I think you are great, and I think that you have things to say to marketers about how to grow their brands that are really different than so much of what gets shared in D2C internet land, whether that's Twitter or elsewhere. And so you've come on before, and we'll link that in the show notes. Everybody should go listen to and watch that, hear about how Nate's got that dog in him. And that content, it's actually a really well received episode. People really liked that episode a lot. And so it's time to have you back. Tell people a little bit about who you are. I could give you a resume, but tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, and why someone like me would have someone like you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm pumped to be back. If anyone's listening that caught the first episode, thanks for giving a lot of great compliments about it. So I got the invite again. But yeah, I'm Nate Lagos, currently the VP of marketing for a regional grain watch company. We make some of the most unique watches on the market. But I've been in e-com for about a decade now. I started helping out brands my freshman year in college when I realized that my marketing classes weren't going to teach me everything I needed to know in this industry. So worked for free for brands for a couple of years while I was trying to balance baseball and keeping my GPA above a 2.
Was that successful? Were you able to do that?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I think there's one semester out of 1.9.
Yeah. That's fine. We'll take the average, take the blended average. It's like
1.9 was still higher than my ERA. So I was pumped.
Yeah.
We're good.
It's like your Facebook ROAS. Like there's a couple bad dollars spent in there, but as long as the number ends up in a good spot, you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, we've had a lot of success at Original Grain the last couple of years, and so much of it has come from this stuff that isn't related to our Facebook ad account. So that's what I'm really excited to talk about. And yeah, I just launched my podcast, Tactical and Practical, wherever you listen. Each episode, I take one singular tactic, walk through it step by step to show you exactly how you can implement it for your e-com brand, all geared towards adding bottom line at dollars.
Yeah. So that was really helpful to give people a sense of kind of who you are. Your podcast is great. People should absolutely go subscribe to it. I don't know anything else quite like it in e-commerce, which is saying something because there are 4,000 e-commerce podcasts, and many of them are very good. The vast majority of them are interview shows like this one. It's part of why I do solo episodes a lot too, is just to do something a little different. But I ramble for like 30 to 40 minutes on a solo episode to go on and on and on. And what your content is first of all, the actual quality of the content is excellent. It's also just like more structured and carefully put together, and that helps you keep it under 15 minutes. I've got a fair amount of experience doing various kinds of public speaking. And one of the things I've always discovered about that is that to make your content shorter requires more, not less prep. It's much easier to go longer than shorter. And what I can feel with your podcast is that you've carefully organized the information and presented it, and it's extremely actionable. Like I'm thinking very much about how to apply some of the things you've talked about with my brands. And I thought like, well, this is a great excuse for me to come and ask you about some of that. And so anyway, go check that out. It is in the show notes. It will really help you, and it will not add very much time to your diet of D2C listening for the week, because it's relatively short to the point, and again, extremely actionable. Like, on some stuff you were talking about the contract details of how you worked out a contract with, a YouTuber or a brand collab partner or whatever. So stuff that is really good. So it's great, dude. And the Original Grain background is really helpful. Original Grain's a really, really cool brand, making watches for men, and I suppose mostly for men, out of all kinds of different materials, like out of old guitars, out of whiskey barrels, out of all kinds of stuff. And it's just a really, really cool brand. And in the midst of that, that has led to you doing a lot of stuff growth wise. So the big key here for this conversation is that we're not going to talk about meta ads very much, at least. I mean, maybe with reference, but what I'm fascinated by is your ability to grow a brand aside, and to do really awesome, profitable brand growth that is not just about meta ad strategy. And there's a convergence of two ideas in here that I think are crucial for people. One of them is practically, how do you actually execute profitable acquisition channels outside of Meta and Google or whatever, right? And really sort of outside of programmatic in general, right? Outside of Google, outside of Snap, outside of TikTok, whatever. How do you grow your brand with sort of, different kinds of partnerships and maybe with like a different kind of marketing to do that and to actually have it be profitable? So much of what people talk about when they talk about the idea of like growing other channels, they're talking about it in a way where it's like, well, it's hard to pencil it out or whatever. But you're like, no, it is super profitable for us, and that's what we care about. That's all we care about actually with these partnerships is driving brand value that's actually profitable. So there's the profitable growth outside of programmatic side, and then on the other side, there's also like, how do I grow a brand? Like actually grow brand, not just awareness, but brand equity. Make my brand something that people love more. And again, a lot of times when people talk about branding, they talk about the idea of branding as if it means burning money. They'll talk about brand spend as a way of talking about like, well, you just what you got to do to, and I think that's wrong. I've thought that's wrong, but I've thought that's been wrong for a while, or at least a stupid use of money for most brands in our space. They need to see a return. And your content and the stuff you've been talking about and what you guys have done at Original Grain, it strikes me threads the needle of those two things like very few others in this space. And this is part of why I think it's unique content in our space. It's really, really cool. So maybe can we talk about first, maybe can you give us a sense of like what some of the better selling products in your guys' collection have been, as much as you're able to share about that, so people can get a sense of kind of brand collabs and some of the stuff you guys have done. And then we can use that as a jumping off point to sort of work backwards from there.
Sure. Yeah, our best-selling products are watches made from reclaimed whiskey barrel woods, guitar tone wood, military ammo crates. And because we are able to use all these unique and reclaimed materials, we've been able to partner with some incredible brands that we can kind of latch on to and immediately add decades or a century of heritage to what we are building. So our most recent collab just came out with Jack Daniels, one of the biggest brands. Like I can't think of too many other brands bigger and more globally recognized than Jack.
Yeah.
So that's been huge for us. We've also partnered with Taylor Guitars, Bob Marley, the New York Yankees a couple years ago.
What was the product for that, for the Yankees?
All watches made from original seats from like their 19
cool.
stadium.
So cool.
Yeah. So brands and, organizations that on paper we kind of have no business partnering with. But because we're able to incorporate their history into unique products, we can provide something that no one else really can. And it's been massive, again, both for sales and for brand building.
Yeah. So let's start there. So how do you get conversations started with brands like that?
A lot of emails, a lot of LinkedIn DMs. Sometimes we'll send samples out if we can get an address for someone. We're fortunate enough now to be in year 11 of OG. We've done this before. So when we can send our deck with Jack Daniels and the New York Yankees on it, there's not too many brands that feel like they're bigger than that or better than that. So we built up an impressive catalog at this point. But early on, it was just a lot of grinding.
Yeah, it's like once you knock that first domino down, then the other ones have a lot easier of a time, right? Because if you've had the Yankees involved, then you can float that to Jack Daniels or Buffalo Trace or whoever it is that you've worked with, and or Taylor, and that makes sense. Do you this maybe even more specifically? One of the things I think about your content and the way you've unpacked some of these strategies is that it strikes me as something unique to Original Grain. At least this is my first thought a little bit. Like, you guys have, it is the product that you're actually incorporating wood from whiskey barrels from Jack Daniels. That's unique. And so I was thinking, like, is Nate's playbook here actually replicable? Or is that because of what Original Grain is? And so what do you think about that? Do you think, let's start on the collaboration thing. Like, do you think more brands ought to be pursuing this kind of collaboration, or is this unique to you guys?
I think other brands should be pursuing it with the asterisks of you're going to be hard pressed to make it as cool as we can. I've worked with brands from dugout mugs to Canna dips that, the product itself can't be too tailor made to fit a brand partner. But even if it's just an engraving, even if it's just stamping their logo on it, tapping into these other brands that have way more brand equity than you have, is massively impactful. And oftentimes it's something that brand can get excited about. If you're a marketing director or manager at one of these legacy brands, there's not a lot of fun you get to have. You got to stay within the brand guidelines. There's never too much craziness going on. So we've actually been able to get some amazing support from these brand. So no, I
That's
don't think it's
interesting.
just for us. I think you might have to work harder to make it work, if you're not, as integrated as our collabs are. But I think it's an opportunity for a lot of brands out there.
If you are still not using Billy for server-side tracking for your meta ads, what are you doing? My friends at Billy, BILY.ai, provide the best, most up-to-date, and most cost-effective, most affordable server-side tracking tool for your meta ads. What do I mean by that? What I mean is replace your pixel with Billy. Use Billy for it instead. It's going to be 100% server-side tracking. You're going to have incredible event match quality. You can just check it, test it yourself for $1 for the first month of Billy. You can easily see how your event match quality will look with Billy relative to your original pixel. I have done this with my clients. I am either using it or testing it with every single one of my clients, and it's been a great solution. I pay the same amount you do, by the way. There's no special deal for me because they're an advertising partner. My clients just like the tool. They use it because they've seen better quality tracking for their Facebook ads by using Billy. Especially if you're using the native Shopify integration for your Facebook ad tracking, Billy is a no doubt upgrade to the quality and quantity of data that you are getting, which will power meta ads with the best conversion tracking data possible to fuel machine learning and algorithms to work as best they possibly can, and also report data as accurately as possible in your dashboard. You will need a couple of more conversions per month, maybe, to pay for Billy. It is that affordable, and everything about working with them is great, super smooth and easy. You will have it installed like in less than a minute on your website. You can also use it for GA4, for Google Ads, for other channels as well. And again, the integration is insanely easy, no developer required. It's a couple clicks of a couple buttons, and you're good to go. Go check out Billy.ai, BILY.ai to get started with Billy today. Yeah, I think so too. My first thought was this might not be replicable, and then my second thought was, well, why not? Like, just be creative
Yeah.
and think about, like, what can you do? I was kind of going through my Rolodex of like brands that I either work with or have talked to a little bit, and I just thought, like, even as simple as like an influencer collab, a scent
Mm-hmm.
collab for some of the CPG brands I've worked with. Could you do something, whether it's with an influencer or another brand, where you do where you scent? But like, if you think about this for your brand, I bet there are ways that you could come up with some kind of co-branded product or whatever, and basically pay the licensing, and ultimately at some point for the collab partner, right? There's going to be an element that once the deal is done, they don't really have to do anything, right? Like, I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like licensing dollars for them, and so they just get to sort of draft off of, the brand they've already built, and just let it be some extra revenue for them. Do you think that's about right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of these brands do have full-on licensing departments now. So it's something that they're used to and experienced in. But to your point, it could be something as simple as a new flavor or colorway, or just adding their logo to it. If you're partnering with the right brand, their logo is going to be worth it enough, for you to see some serious
Yeah,
brand lift and sales out of it.
yeah. Do you what can so just let's get a practical question here right away. Um, can you give a sense of what kind of licensing fees you guys are paying per product, depending on the collab? I don't know how much information you can share here, but what should people be expecting to pay in royalties, basically, on per product?
Yeah, so all of our deals are structured with no money up front, but a 5 to 12% royalty, depending on who we work with. That's a big gap. We've
Yeah,
seen, 7 and 8 be pretty common, but some of these bigger brands that have earned it demand more. That also comes with a minimum guarantee on the total amount of royalties we'll give them and a set term to the uh, deal.
yeah,
So we'll have 2 years and we got to hit 100 grand in royalties. We obviously weigh that, do the math on our end. Fortunately, we've never come close to not hitting an MG.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just a simple percentage on sales.
That makes a lot of sense. And this is one of those places where, like, the ad account does actually kind of play in, right? Because if you've
Mm-hmm.
committed to a minimum, then clearly, it's just like any inventory management. There's like a certain amount of stuff where it sort of becomes that same thing where you just have to sell it. And so
Yep.
you basically have to allocate the spend, and that's that. Yeah. Do you have any sense of? Here's a question I've thought about with these kind of collab deals. Do you have any sense of the relative LTV of customers who come into your product on collab products versus on non-collab products? And here's my hypothesis. My hypothesis would be that your collab customers would be worse than your other customers, because part of what is reflected here is that they're more loyal to the other brand than yours. And I'm just curious if that has played out. By the way, if so, that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. But I just
Right.
yeah,
So you're half right.
yeah,
So we look at the brands we partner with kind of in two buckets. The first is something that's already in line with something we do, something that we know is going to crush. Like the guys have been making whiskey barrel watches for a decade. So when we partnered with Buffalo Trace 3 years ago or Jack Daniels this year, we already knew that was going to work for us. There wasn't a risk. We were like, hey, this is going to crush. We were pumped. That customer, because we have 30 of our own branded whiskey barrel watches and bracelets and accessories already, that customer actually has a stronger LTV. The collab products are priced higher than any of our core products. So they are introduced to us through the brand that they're a fan of, but then we have a whole catalog of products designed to sell to that person. So their LTV is actually higher. The other half of our collab partners are brands that are kind of outside the norm of what we do. Things that we haven't done before. That would be like Taylor Guitars and Bob Marley for us. We had never worked with guitar wood. We had never worked with hemp that we inlaid to the Bob Marley watches. We view those as kind of like an introduction to an audience that we're currently not hitting. So those deals were introduced to a bunch of new customers. We don't have a deep catalog of stuff that we know they will like, but we go into our next round of product development around that. So since we've launched with Taylor 4-ish years ago, we've actually gotten that cohort's LTV to be higher as well. The Bob Marley cohort's currently lower. We just launched with him in February. But yeah, so it depends on the collab. It depends on the rest of our kind of product catalog. But it's an important thing to know is like, are we getting these guys once, or are we getting this introduction that's going to bring more people to the OG tribe who are going to stay and buy again?
what that reflects to me more than anything else is just the importance of the connection between like product and marketing,
Mm,
and like being thoughtful about, instead of just sort of like throwing it out there and hoping you'll get LTV, right? It's just like
yeah,
you're actually thinking about how to build for the specific customer. You're thinking about, like, a Taylor guitar customer is really different than a whiskey customer, and so how do we do that? Because I have a lot of church background, I can tell you, like, Taylor is the guitar of choice for church worship leaders. Like,
yep,
and I bet you there is I bet you, I remember at some point I had heard that, like, Guitar Center, it was like 25% of their sales or something like that. Maybe it was even more than that, was sold to like church musicians, basically. Like
That's
it's like
so funny.
it's a very large percentage of their business. It's in
Mhm.
terms of who's playing music. It might have even been like 50%. It's a huge number. Um, what that suggests to me though is like a collab like Taylor appeals to somebody really different than a
Yeah.
Bob Marley collab, for example. Those,
Mhm.
you know, those two, despite both being ostensibly music collabs,
Right.
like it's just
Right.
like a different set of things. And so thinking carefully about who that customer is versus your Jack Daniels customer, because I bet your Jack Daniels customer is not your Marley customer necessarily either.
Yep.
And so sort of pulling that together uh, with product development, I think is really helpful, and thinking about how you appeal to that customer. Do you think somebody should start this by thinking about who their current customer is, or should they start it by thinking about opening up new customers?
I think you should start with your current
Yeah.
customer base. I think you should start with a collab on something that's very in line with what you do, just adding more brand value to it, adding essentially a megaphone of a collaboration to it. That's a lot more likely to succeed. I would hate for someone to start on something that's kind of out there, have it flop, and then say, "Oh, collabs don't work for us."
Yeah.
I would definitely start kind of
Yeah.
in the lane of what your brand is known for.
That's what I assumed you'd say, but just in case of that ask. And then one other question about this. I I I bet the answer is no, but do you get any promotion to the brand's audience at all as part of the deal? Like, do they actually promote it?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
So we always ask for the world. We want to be included on their website and their email campaigns, their social media. We'll ask for
Change the
everything.
homepage. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, we're kind of just waiting for them to see what they're gonna do. But we've had a lot of email inclusions, a lot of collaborative social media posts, a lot of whitelisting to their ad account. All those have been really, really powerful for us. We had a pre-launch to the Jack Daniels Tennessee Squires, which is their like insider members, the day before launch, and we couldn't believe how big and successful it was.
Yeah,
So it can be powerful.
that feels like it's a win for Jack Daniels too, right? Like that's a really cool product to put in front of that group of super fans, and I bet they're
Yeah,
pretty happy to do that, and they're going to make some money
for
from it
sure.
as well, rather than just and a category they're not currently selling to. So, yeah, I totally get that. Do Okay, let's move over to YouTube partnerships and some of those things. You've talked about this. You've said that partnering with YouTube creators on your ads is the most profitable channel for Original Crane.
Yep.
That's wild. Why don't you do? I mean, people can go listen again. We'll put the link in there to sort of your full breakdown of how you do this. But that caught my attention. Like you're seeing massive return on doing this. So give us the sort of intro first to kind of what that program looks like for you guys and what it is that you're actually doing there.
Sure. We have focused our entire influencer program on YouTubers because I think it's a platform with the most attention and intention. There's 2.5 billion people every month searching on YouTube for something very specific that they want to watch. So because we know our customers so well, we know that they watch videos of, bourbon cocktail recipes on YouTube, and they'll watch a guy open the newest bottle from Jack Daniels and drink it and review it. We reach out to all those creators, tell them that we would love to sponsor usually a series of videos, 2 or 3 or 4, especially as we approach big promotional periods for us like Valentine's Day, Father's Day, or Christmas. Agree on a flat fee to sponsor those videos, send them some product, give them some loose talking points. And we give them their own discount code and link with a UTM on it to promote to their audience. And yeah, the numbers for Q4 last year were insane. We got an 8x return on that ad spend. We scaled that program up a lot this year. We did not hit an 8x for Q2,
Sure.
but it's still much more profitable ROAS wise than anything else we're doing.
Okay, so there's so many questions here that I could ask. Let's start with scaling it up. So this is manual outreach to creators, right? You're not
Yep.
using software. You're just finding channels, searching YouTube, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we have tried and eventually quit kind of every like influencer scraping tool out there. We found them to be more trouble than they're worth, or they make a creator like sign in and create an account and it just never goes anywhere. So we haven't found a better system than manual YouTube search. It lets you search by keyword of the channel title and of what content is in there. Then we typically find an Instagram page that's associated with that YouTube channel, hit them up there, or we'll find an email and send them an email. But that is the only downside to this program. It just takes man hours to be able to scale it up.
How many people do you currently have employed for whom this is a large part or full-time part of their job?
One.
Okay. So is there enough juice there to squeeze to where you could employ 4, you know?
Eventually.
Yeah.
The only reason I say eventually, we'd want to do it more kind of slow and steady than that. We are currently looking for a way to expand that. Because so much of the process is kind of the research and then the outreach. There's not a ton of skill in the research, especially if someone could present us with a list of like, hey, here are the channels, here are their average views for the last month or the last 10 videos. We think we can get a VA to do a lot of that. So is there room to scale it? Yes. We just have a very slow and steady approach to everything. So we're going to do it step by step.
Okay. You specifically said you're doing, I think, between 2 and 4. I love to see the Red Bull happening live. That's part of the Nate Lagos brand. Red Bull hat.
Now it's a podcast.
Crushing. Yeah, we got crushing. You need to get that. Should be your next. I know you've got a SaaS sponsor right now on your podcast. You should see if you get Red Bull involved. Do that collab for the Nate Lagos.
I would love to. I don't know if they pay for it though. I'm already giving them several areas of free exposure during the show. So
it's such a baseball community thing with your baseball background to just be crushing energy drinks for sure.
Yeah, that was just summer ball. Was crushed 2 in the bullpen before I came in to pitch the 9th.
So good. Anyway, no. So you said between 2 and 4. Do you? Why not do 1, save the money, research it, see if one of them works, and then scale it up from there?
The reason we don't do 1 is because our AOV is $300. Typically something that people need to see a couple times before they're convinced. Typically something that people might have to save up for. When you look at our customer base, we're unique in that the buyer is not the guy who wears it. The buyer is typically that guy's wife, girlfriend, mom, daughter. So you know that men and women in relationships don't always have great communication. So we need some time to happen, and we need her to ask him, what do you want for your birthday or Christmas? And he'll say, I don't know, for 2 weeks before he finally says, oh, well, I saw this thing. It's kind of cool. So for our brand in particular, I think we need more than 1 ad. And we've seen 2, 3, and 4 work really well. We've also seen 5, 6, 7, and 8 start to fatigue.
This was going to be my next question. Yeah. If they happen too quickly, what happens if you spread them out?
We do. But you know, even if you do 4 weekly leading up to a holiday sales period, like that's probably the most you can do. Unless we want to start our Father's Day sale in April, which I'm not really against. I would do that. But buyer behavior just doesn't start thinking about these holidays until 30 to 45 days out. So that's why we're limited there.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, and this, you mentioned the gift thing. This is something I've wondered about with this, because there's a lot of brands out there that are selling gift products, and I've worked with a lot of brands that have sold them, and I've always thought about this element that when you're selling gift products, one of the mistakes people make is that they think, oh, because the gift is for somebody else, I have to think about the other person. But I think one of the fundamental things of selling gift products is that there is something in it for the gift giver. And the thing that's in it for the gift giver is the pleasure and joy of giving a good, thoughtful gift that they feel great about. I know this in part because I'm a bad gift giver. And anytime I come across something, my wife's birthday is coming up. I found an awesome gift this year, and I'm taking her to an awesome place. And
let's go.
Both are thoughtful. And the place that I'm taking her to has a unique thing that she will love on her birthday.
Huge.
And
let's go.
So I am like thrilled about this because I suck at giving gifts, and so I am already excited to give her those gifts, which means there's something in it for me, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so the reason I bring that up is because have you guys partnered with YouTube channels that are targeting the gift giver really
Hmm.
specifically and not the gift receiver, like by trying to do this? This would be very hard, I think. Actually, it would be a broader net to cast in some ways, in a way that the audience is less tight, and I assume that the sort of tightness of the audience is part of what makes YouTube work for you. But I I'm curious if you've tried that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. When we are selling to the guys who wear our watches, we want to sell confidence and status, and we want, uh, they are buying this watch for themselves, because they want their tribe, family, friends to recognize them as, oh, he's the bourbon aficionado of the group for sure. That's who he is.
Dude, that's
When we
can I
sell,
just pause really fast? That's
yeah,
so insightful that like you're not selling a watch, you're selling my sense of
mm-mm,
being a bourbon aficionado. Like
yeah,
that is a really, really helpful thought to think about for people's businesses for what marketing is in terms of tapping
yeah.
into a deeper emotion.
We worked with Sarah Levinger like a year and a half ago, because up until that point, I thought I was selling watches,
Yep.
and I'm not. And I think that's something that marketers, especially all of us in ecom, kind of grew up in the direct response world. Like we think we're creating demand for our product, and it's like, no, no, no. The demand already exists inside the human psyche. Like men have wanted to feel confident and important and looked up to for however long you think humans have been around. So all my marketing is trying to do is play into that and say, hey, I
Yep.
have a product that can let you feel all those things.
Yep. Yeah,
When we're
that's cool.
marketing
That's
towards,
really cool. I'll link. Sarah's a great follow on Twitter. I will link
she is,
her in the notes for this as well. So
yeah.
go check that out and give her a follow.
So when we're selling to the women, we're not selling status or confidence. We are selling, like you said, the ability to nurture their partner. So we have sponsored a handful of female family focused creators. Most of them are wives and mothers. The whole mom vlog lifestyle kind of chicks. Um, we have a way of measuring how much each creator's audience is worth to us. So it's the opposite of CPM. We measure RPM, revenue per thousand views. And we see that those female focused creators are worth slightly less to us, than, the most niche whiskey guys. But it's still well worth it to us. And we just know that going into these deals now. So we know that we pay a lower fee on it. But yeah, marketing to both the gift giver and the gift receiver has been really important. And I love seeing comments on our Facebook ads of being like, me and my husband have been seeing these ads on YouTube.
Yep.
And it's like, I know you're not watching the same channels,
Yeah. Right.
but it's cool that we're kind of casting that wide net.
Yeah. Do you uh okay, so actually tell me more about YouTube specifically and why YouTube. You mentioned this a little bit, but
Yeah.
I mentioned tightness of the audience, and look, like what I know about my own audience, like I sell ads here. I'm going to put insert an ad into this episode about
Yep.
how working with more staffing, my Filipino staffing agency sponsor, is like the perfect way to go staff up your ability to generate the kinds of partnerships that you and I are talking about on this. And the reason I know that will appeal to my clients, first of all, clients, excuse me, my listeners, is because it's true, first of all, and I will represent it authentically because I actually believe that, and so that's why I've worked with them for a long time. I'm really happy to send people to them. But then, secondly, because my audience is not that big, but it's really tight. It
Mm,
is like the only person listening to or watching this content is somebody who is a D2C professional. They have not made it 32 minutes into this. Um, to get to the reference to Nate's baseball career that we just had a second
right.
ago, right? That's not what they're here for. As much as like we probably could lay down a long episode about that.
My dad would be pumped about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. But the yeah, so that's my sense of what makes YouTube good. Is that right? And what am I missing? Why else is YouTube so valuable?
Yeah, so it's the second biggest search engine in the world, second only to Google. So there's so many people going here looking for something specific. And I think you would agree on Meta, your ad creative does the targeting for you, right? The content of a YouTube video does all the targeting you need.
Yep.
I do not ask creators for demographic info. I do not ask them if it's a male dominated audience,
Yeah, you know
or
that from looking at the content.
what country they're in. If it's a 19-minute long video where these guys open 6 bottles of whiskey and drink them and review them, I know exactly who's watching that. So let the content do the targeting for you. The more niche the audience, or the more niche the topic, and how closely related that niche is to the products you can sell, the audience is going to be more and more valuable. So in scaling this program up, we have sponsored shows that are much less targeted and more kind of broad lifestyle, some comedy podcasts. Those audiences, we know we cannot pay the same price for as our super niche creators, because even though the audience size might be bigger, the interest isn't as heavily stacked in our favor.
Yeah. And I think this is so crucial. This is, I think back always to when I was at Kalo, Silicone Wedding Rings, and still one of the most effective marketing campaigns I've seen is when Kalo wanted to break into CrossFit. And what we did was we targeted, I've talked about this a lot of times, but I still think is a really good example. We targeted every possible engagement with the CrossFit community we could. We were working with CrossFit charities. We were at the CrossFit Games. We were at the CrossFit Regional Games, the smaller events leading up to it. We were working with CrossFit influencers. We sponsored the CrossFit Games, and then we were advertising with content, with CrossFit style content on our Facebook ads as well. So there's people were scrolling, they were also seeing those things. And it feels to me like YouTube is just such a place where if you have any nicheness at all to your product, if you are there, and then it's just so perfect because you can go find people who, like you said, the creative does the targeting for you, right? In that same thing. As part of that, do you guys at Original, like when you guys build these deals, do you do any sort of add-ons to the deals where you use their other social channels, or you get access to the ad reads for their ad content? Do you sort of add anything else like that to the deal as part of it? And if so, is it successful?
We try to, but it's rare. A lot of creators, I think, have wised up to it, and know that they should be charging money for whitelisting access, and they should be charging more money to use the video content in our meta ads. So it's something we ask for. A lot of creators are trying to charge a lot of money for it these days. We pass a lot, but the few times we've done it, it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, my older brother, I'll link this too in the show notes for anybody who is interested in this. My older brother is a YouTuber, as well as actually does video production, and his YouTube channel is called Mort's Garage. It's all retro video games is his audience. So he's like a vintage retro video game collector. He has 3,000 video games, and so his whole channel is about like game collection, and he goes to a lot of like swap meets and buys and sells, and he just kind of chronicles all of it. So really tight audience, right? If Original Grain had a video game related
super niche
product, right, he would be like a no brainer for this. But part of what he started to do that's interesting to me is, because he's talked to me about it, is he'll create the ad, and then he'll spin out a vertical version of the video as well and try to upsell it back to the brand partner.
Oh, that's so nice.
So that they can actually have it pre-edited and used for meta ads in vertical format, and I think it's really smart, and I think more creators hopefully will get wise to this, because they're already making the ad and they're already making the edit. Like they're already in YouTube somewhere making the edit. So it's a small thing for him. He just like makes sure to shoot it in a way that's pretty easy to make the edit, can pass that along and charge an extra $500 or $1,000 or whatever for the episode. I don't remember what he's charging, but
that's smart.
But like something like that. Yeah. So you have found that content has worked well in the ad account when you've used it?
On some occasions, yeah. Again, it's that's the only way it gets a little bit difficult with how niche a creator is, because they might be heroes to their small audience, but then running them to a broad and targeted audience.
It's actually going to be about the quality of the ad at that point.
Yeah, like it's more about how passionately they sell it. How much does that guy look like a representation of who our customers are? So it's worked at times. It's not always a slam dunk.
I mentioned it in this episode with Nate, and I'm serious. If you are considering scaling up your marketing team, you absolutely should be considering doing it with incredibly talented marketers from the Philippines via my friends at More Staffing. The fundamental mistake of thinking about overseas hiring is thinking that the only thing you can find overseas is extremely entry-level employees doing repetitive and simple tasks. That is wrong. That is wrong, and there's really no reason for you to think that. By working with my friends at More Staffing, you can find incredibly talented people with deep e-commerce resumes in all parts of your business, including marketing, but also supply chain, operations, etc. And you'll find people who really know their stuff, bring a ton to your team, and are really part of your team, and that you can do that while paying talented people at high rates in the Philippines that is going to attract really high quality talent, and at the same time will be less than you would pay for equivalent talent, significantly less than you'd pay for equivalent talent in the US. It is a win-win. You attract great people, they make great money, you also keep your OpEx nice and lean. Go to morenow.co/AF. I have staffed up my own team. I'm adding at least one, maybe 2 or 3 more people to my team from More Staffing. I have never once gotten rid of somebody from my team that More Staffing has placed with it. I have loved every hire that I've had. So you should go do the same thing. morenow.co/AF. Build your team in the Philippines with incredibly talented people today.
At Nate Lagos on Twitter, Tactical and Practical, wherever you listen to podcasts. And appreciate, Andrew, you having me back on. It's been great, man.
Thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode, wherever you are watching or listening to it. I appreciate it so much. If you loved it, subscribe and also share it with a friend. That's the number one way you can say thanks to me. Don't forget to go follow up with my friends at Billy.ai for server-side tracking for your meta ads, and More Staffing by going to morenow.co/AF to get incredible talent from the Philippines in your e-commerce business. And follow up with Nate. You will love his podcast if you like this interview. If you've made it this far, you'll definitely love it. Go do that. Follow that in the show notes. And of course, you can also listen to my old episode with Nate, which is also in the show notes. Thanks again. I will see you next time.